these patients. Now, moreover, babies born from myasthenic mother show temporary features of the myasthenia. So babies born from myasthenic mothers, they show temporary features of myasthenia because the antibodies, they cross the placenta. Antibodies cross the placenta to reach the baby and to produce temporary features of the myasthenia gravis. So this is the pathophysiology of the myasthenia gravis. It is an autoimmune disease. What is the patient starts some work, he starts brushing teeth, he won't be able to continue after some time. Patient starts some work, some voluntary action, after some time he is not able to continue to work in these patients. You see the patient having ptosis, drooping of the upper eyelids. You see ptosis in myasthenia gravis patient having the drooping of the upper eyelids. So what is the treatment in the patients of myasthenia gravis? Now we give anticholinergics. Anticholinergics, the drug which inactivate the enzyme acetylcholinesterase. When this enzyme is inactivated, acetylcholine is not destroyed, not hydrolyzed. Acetylcholine is not destroyed or hydrolyzed. So acetylcholine accumulates, and this improves the neuromuscular transmission. It improves the neuromuscular transmission. Now one of the anticholinesterase is neostigmine. So neostigmine is one of the anticholinesterase. Now there are some other anticholinesterases, including the physostigmine, diisopropyl fluorophosphate. So these are also the other anticholinesterases. Right? So neostigmine, which is an anticholinesterase, when given to the patient, it results into marked improvement. So marked improvement occurs by giving neostigmine, which is an anticholinesterase drug. Now in addition to neostigmine, I mentioned earlier also thymectomy, removal of thymus, give benefit in many of these patients. So thymectomy is beneficial in many of these patients because it is an autoimmune disease. Nowadays another technique is available, and that technique, it removes antibodies from the patients. I mean antibodies against the acetylcholine receptors of the patient, and that technique is called plasmapheresis. So we use plasmapheresis to remove antibodies against acetylcholine receptors, and this gives benefit to the patient for some weeks. So for some weeks after plasmapheresis, there is benefit to the patient. What is plasmapheresis? Removal of the autoantibodies from the plasma. and by removing these antibodies, there is improvement in these patients. So this was about the myasthenia gravis. Another disease resembling myasthenia gravis is Lambert-Eaton syndrome. Lambert-Eaton syndrome is another disease having severe muscle weakness. It resembles myasthenia gravis. Lambert-Eaton syndrome. Lambert-Eaton syndrome. In this disease also there is severe muscle weakness resembling the myasthenia gravis. But in Lambert-Eaton syndrome, a different cause. Lambert-Eaton syndrome is also an autoimmune disease. It is also an autoimmune disease. But in this syndrome, antibodies are formed against voltage-gated calcium channels in the motor nerve terminal. So in Lambert-Eaton syndrome, antibodies are formed not against acetylcholine receptors, but against the voltage-gated calcium channels, in the motor nerve terminal. And when antibodies are formed against voltage-gated calcium channels, these channels are destroyed, blocked. There is no calcium influx. And when there is no calcium influx into the motor nerve terminal, will the neurotransmitter be released? No. So when there is damage to the voltage-gated calcium channels by the autoantibodies, there won't be calcium influx into the motor nerve terminal. And when there is no calcium influx into motor nerve terminal, there is no release of acetylcholine. There is no release of acetylcholine from the motor nerve terminal. The result will be very low voltage of the end plate potential. And there is failure of neuromuscular transmission occurs. Right? So this is the cause in the Lambert-Eaton syndrome, which resembles myasthenia gravis. Now a simple test by which we can differentiate between these two conditions, myasthenia gravis and Lambert-Eaton syndrome, is that we give intravenous injection of adrophonium. Which is a short-acting anticholine esterase. So we give intravenous injection of adrophonium, which is the short-acting anticholine esterase. So by giving this injection of adrophonium, if improvement occurs in muscle weakness, it is the case of myasthenia gravis. If improvement occurs by giving intravenous injection of adrophonium, it is the case of myasthenia gravis. If no improvement occurs, it is the case of, say, Lambert-Eaton syndrome or other disease involving the muscle weakness. So if improvement occurs by giving injection of adrophonium, it is a case of myasthenia gravis. If no improvement occurs, it may be a case of Lambert-Eaton syndrome or maybe other disease involving the muscle weakness. So this was about the myasthenia gravis, and then about the Lambert-Eaton syndrome. Lambert-Eaton syndrome. Next we discuss about neuromuscular transmission blockers. Neuromuscular transmission blockers. Now these neuromuscular transmission blockers are used clinically. These blockers are used clinically to produce muscle relaxation during surgical operations, to produce muscular relaxation during surgical operations. These are also used to reduce strong muscular contraction. These are also used to reduce strong muscular contraction during electroconvulsive treatment of psychotic patients. During electroconvulsive treatment of psychotic patients. You know, the psychotic patients having psychic disorders, psychiatric disorders. Right? So in these patients, sometimes, if patients are uncontrolled, we give electroconvulsive treatment. Simple word में we can say बिजली के झटके देते हैं, बिजली के झटके देते हैं. That is the electroconvulsive treatment. Now when there is electroconvulsive treatment of these patients, there is very strong muscular contraction. To reduce these contractions of muscles during electroconvulsive treatment, we give the blockers of neuromuscular transmission. So we give blockers of neuromuscular transmission in psychotic patients during electroconvulsive treatment. Now what are these factors, what are these substances or drugs which can block the neuromuscular transmission? Now first about the agents or drugs which block the release of acetylcholine from the motor nerve terminal. Drugs or substances which prevent release of acetylcholine from the motor nerve terminals. And these include botulinum toxin or toxin released by a bacteria, Clostridium botulinum. The toxin released by a bacteria, that is Clostridium botulinum. Then acetylcholine is not released. Acetylcholine is not released from the motor nerve terminal if there is deficiency of calcium ions and excess of magnesium ions. So deficiency of calcium ions and excess of magnesium ions, these cause interference with the release of acetylcholine from the motor nerve terminal. Right? Then there are certain drugs which compete with acetylcholine to bind with acetylcholine receptors. There are certain drugs which compete with acetylcholine to bind with the acetylcholine receptors, and these are called the competitive blockers. These are called the competitive blockers. So these competitive blockers include D-tubocularine. D-tubocularine is a competitive blocker of the neuromuscular transmission. D-tubocularine. It binds with acetylcholine receptors. It binds with acetylcholine receptors. These receptors don't remain available for acetylcholine. These receptors do not remain available for acetylcholine. Now, when the tubocularine occupy the receptor for acetylcholine, these won't result into depolarization. So these drugs just occupy the receptors for acetylcholine, but there is no depolarization. There is no depolarization. So when there is no depolarization of the motor nerve terminal membrane, so there won't be end plate potential produced. There won't be end plate potential produced, and this results into failure of neuromuscular transmission. It results into failure of neuromuscular transmission, resulting into muscle relaxation. Now, the history of D-tubocularine is that this is a natural alkaloid present in the leaves of a plant, curare. Curare is the name of the plant. Curare is the name of the plant, and the leaves of this plant contain the alkaloid D-tubocularine. So curare is the plant, its leaves contain the natural alkaloid D-tubocularine. Red Indians used to apply the leaves of the plant curare on the tip of their arrows, teal. So on the tips of their arrows, they used to apply curare, plant leaves. And when the arrow used to strike the animals got paralyzed. The animal got paralyzed. Why paralyzed? Because of the presence of D-tubocularine in the leaves of the plant curare, right? And this resulted into muscle relaxation, muscle paralysis, and the animal was not able to move. So this is the history of the drug D-tubocularine, a natural alkaloid present in the leaf of the plant curare, right? So this is an excellent example of this competitive blocker, that is the D-tubocularine. The other competitive blocker, which is synthetic blocker, is Flexidil. So Flexidil is a synthetic competitive blockers used in the operation theaters during surgical operations.